What's up, Dragon Ball Super family? I'm Legends Michael Carrick, and I just returned from the Wisconsin-Madison regional that happened this past weekend. I placed third in Swiss and top 8 after Top Cut, immediately losing out in the first round of Top Cut. I faced an Android 16 this weekend, I faced a Majin Vegeta, and then I faced 5 Green Gohans, and then an Android 21. Luckily, I think the Green Gohan matchup is actually super favored for this deck, and then I'll go into some of the reasons why as we go through the deck profile. I still haven't solved the Android 21 matchups. If anybody else out there has any suggestions on what to do for that matchup, I'm definitely open to it. I've been racking my brain since the start of this format. I keep losing to it. And then the Majin Vegeta game was really good. A couple misplays cost me the match. And yeah, let's just quickly delve into this deck profile. So, openers are the same. 4 Frieza's Call, 4 Ginyus, 4 Tagamas. They let you get your engine rolling. Late game, you just want to charge those Frieza calls. Self-Awakeners still haven't changed. We're still playing the 4 Roshi, 1 Malicious. I did get punished for having the 1 Malicious this weekend. I went to go Frieza's Call on turn 2, and it was in my life. So I might be playing a second Malicious moving forward. Played 4 copies of Higher Dragon and 3 copies of the Gohan. I think 4 copies of Higher Dragon is actually overkill. The more and more I play this deck, I realize I'm not playing Higher Dragon until turn 3. And if I'm not doing that, because I don't want it to get hit, or because I don't want my opponent to be focused on my Higher Dragon earlier than that, then I really shouldn't be playing 4 copies of a card I don't need till turn 3, despite the fact that I'm playing a 54 to 55 card deck, right? Because I'm cycling 2 to 3 cards every turn before I awaken, and then like 4 or 5 cards after I awaken. So I'm going to trim, moving forward, I'm going to trim the Higher Dragon down to 3. 3 copies of Sin Shenron. This was also overkill this weekend. I feel like my deck needs to go through a radical upgrade. I did perform well this weekend, but I think that's just because I got good matchups into Green Gohan. I think if I had faced a much more slower set of opponents, I would have done much more poorly. And this card I sided out all weekend. It's not good into Green Gohan, and even versus the decks it is good into, 3 is too much. I think the only world where 3 is still good is if you're playing a bunch of red. Like, if your local has a bunch of, like, red pan or something like that, then the Sin Shenron is still really good. But I think moving on, I'll probably move it back down to 2. Still 4 copies I post, and 3 copies of SS Vegito. Vegito's quickly becoming the least useful card in the deck. I found myself siding 1 copy out all the time. It was okay versus Green Gohan, but versus the slower matchups, you never almost get to resolve it, right? Because it never works versus like Android 21. Yellow, it sometimes eats the Tyrannical Blow, but you can't pass to yellow with 1 up hoping this will save you, because then you just lose the Tyrannical Blow. And it's very hard to keep 2 cards in the Z energy for this card to remain live. 3 copies of Secret ID. I played 1 event with this deck without 3 copies of Secret ID, and I really regretted it. People were just facing me down with Black Mass Saiyan and the Borgos Untapper. So I'm back on 3 Secret ID to make sure I remove both of those threats. It also is just a good overarm threat to keep like boards clear and pushing for game. Otherwise, you're forced to play stuff like Black Kamehameha to tap your opponent's stuff and then have an answer for their rested cards afterwards. 3 copies of SSB Goku and Frieza, the Divine. This card is just the best card in the deck. You get to play it from 2 from your Z Energy, so it becomes a 5k combo to get out attacks. Then you get to play it from 2 from your Z Energy, and the Activate main actually is pretty useful. You can revive the Malicious from the drop, and there's some things I want to play around, some ideas I want to play around with it in the future. But I think I'm moving forward. I would bump this card to 4. It's just like a good card to play every turn, especially if you don't have a 1-drop or if you're afraid your opponent can counterplay your 1-drops. Like, you can play this from your Z Energy. It dodges stuff that like counterplays that hit small stuff like let the battle begin while still putting on pressure, drawing a card to replace itself like as if you just played a 1-drop, and then you can still kill it off with your leader if you need to untap afterwards. 4 copies of Krillin Super Combo. Card's insane. You play so many extra cards and unisons that you need cards to cycle out. That's another reason why I want to trim down on the Baby Dragon. It's just another card you can't combo. 1 copy of the Frieza Divine Transformation. This card's just still so good versus Blue and versus Green Gohan. They have a hard time getting rid of this card because they can't just KO it for free. And then if you always keep their 8-drop tap, like none of their smaller cards get over this card very well. So it's a free block. 1 copy of Cooler. 1 copy of the Goku. Goku's really good in like very niche scenarios, like versus Green. Like you can force him to tap out, especially if they want to leave 1 or 2 up. Force him to pay an extra like card from hand to use that Floodgate. If they hadn't used it earlier, like once you tap them out, it's obviously good pressure. Um, It's down to 1 now because it was really hard to resolve 2. I'm not going to lie. Versus a red meta, this card was a lot better. Versus black, this card's really good because it focuses the petrification early game onto this instead of your SCR. But also, I found myself siding this card out quite a bit, so I'm not sure moving forward if I'm going to continue playing this card. A lot of people are playing the Boo over this. The only reason I like this card over the Boo is that it's a 0 for 5 rather than a 1 for 10. Still playing Golden Cooler SCR. This card wins games on its own. Paired with Bloodlust, sometimes you just desperation slam this card, have Bloodlust to deal with the Floodgate, and then try to push your opponent to end. And oftentimes, like, even if your opponent does, like, Time Magic it or Petrify it, you've already equaled out the hand advantage so much that, like, you're too far ahead. Like, versus, I played against, I neglected to mention, I also played against a Trunks, and, he had like a 16 card hand at one point, and I was at like 14 or 13, and then I slammed Cooler, and it brought him down to 5, and then I attacked a Cooler, and he petrifies, so that brings him down to 2 or 3. So like passing turn, I like the 14 cards of his 3 cards, it just seems like unwinnable at that point for the opposing player. 3 copies of Frieza Armor Reinforcement. This is probably the most disappointing card now, especially with the slower format. There's a lot of big dual attackers coming out at Android 21, especially that SCR that I think I'm gonna want to try to change the Time Magic for. Time Magic's obviously better in the mirror. It costs 1 energy. Time Magic doesn't lose the Koitsukai. It just seems like Time Magic is feeling better now. 1 copy of T-Blown in the main. We are playing a best 1 pre-sided format with a best 3 top cut, so there's going to be a couple 1-ofs that you just swap out for extra ratios after the main deck is, or after you once you sit down across from your opponents. 1 copy of T-Blow, 1 copy of Flying Nimbus, and then of course your 2 staples, probably the Super Saiyan Cold Bloodlust. It's a easy 55 card deck. I'm going to try to make cuts to trim it down to 54. I missed on 1-drops 1 game, and it just happened to be my top cut game 1, and it was just brutal. Quickly going to the side deck, we have the 1 Jiren for Respect into blue, 1 Death Blaster for Respect into the Golden Cooler, and into the Self-Control 21 when they go to try to play the cards from their energy. 1 extra Nimbus for aggro. 2 Dabura versus Green Gohan, and I think the Dabura actually are a big difference compared to Gohan versus Green Gohan compared to the yellow Gohan in yellow. Sure, you have to pay an energy, but one of the best ways to beat Green Gohan is just keep passing with 3 energy up into their turn, and their turn is super limited. Then that way you always have Mutaito up for their 8-drop. You have Dabura up in case they try to hand control you. That way you get super far ahead as soon as they try to hand control you, and then you still have an energy up for like your Riposte, right? So if you keep passing or 3 up, that matchup almost feels unlosable. Speaking of, here's the 3 Mutaitos, which just affects Green Gohan like tremendously. Right, you can Mutaito their Vegeta that they immediately play on turn 2 from underneath their hyperbolic time chamber, and that shuts down their draw from that card. That shuts down their critical attack. That shuts down their combo, and it keeps the Trunks underneath the hyperbolic, so they can't even use the Goku to full effect to put the Goku and Gohan combo underneath. Mutaito versus that matchup is disgusting. And then of course late game, every time they try to slam their 8-drop bomb, you just slam Mutaito. You can when they go to play, it is played by skill, so you can window 1 Mutaito always, and then if they have breakthrough skill, you can window 2 the second Mutaito to make sure the 8-drop gets in the drop. You know, it's such a good way to shut down the matchup. And then the rest of their cards just aren't a threat mid to late game. So it's really good. 1 copy of Trunks the Cunning. It's like my feeble attempt at answering Android 21. It helps if you see it. If you don't see it, it's like not the worst. That's why I'm only playing 1. Second copy of Tyrannical Blow. 2nd copy of Cooler. 2 copies of Smokey. Also a huge card in the Android 21 matchup. They're all playing hits now for their Unison. And then that also enables them to have Let the Battle Begin to be live. So Smokey lets you clear that. In the Swap Frieza matchup, it lets you clear the 5-drop, which you don't think is very threatening because it's just sitting there, and sure, you can play around its effects, but it gives them a free way to go into the 8-drop, like a really easy way to go into the 8-drop once they go to their kill turn, right? Smokey's just really good in these niche scenarios. Plus, it doubles as a, like if you face against a full hand control deck, it doubles as a draw 2 engine. A copy of Release from Evil. I think every tournament I've competed in, I've sided this into my side deck, and I've hated it. Every single event. And I take it out every event, only to put it back in moments before I enter the event, and then just hate it again. So this time it's probably permanently coming out. And then the 2nd copy of Divine Transformation for Green Gohan and blue decks. My Z deck has changed drastically since the last time I played this leader. There are a lot of couple new techs in it, so we'll start with the all-time favorite SSB Vegeta surmounting the impossible. Some tricks you can do with this card is in case you draw your malicious Frieza, you can actually pay the 1 to play this from your Z deck, send the malicious Frieza back to your Z deck to take a life and draw a card, and then use Frieza Call to get that malicious Frieza onto the field and kill that to take a second life. So it's a cool way to double take a life and not tap out. In case you ever want to take 2 life and like you thought Roshi was your own life, or if you just have malicious in your hand. So don't charge it. It's on trading. Don't charge that malicious just because you drew it. There's a way out of it. Then we play 2 Friezas, just a warm up. So this is actually my new favorite card from the Z deck. Obviously you cannot KO it for your leader skill to untap the 2 because Z cards cannot be KO'd as costs, but it is a 1/1 15k, and that's what's so important about it. A lot of times you're just looking for a second energy to use before you untap 2 in case you have like a dead turn coming up. And that's what this card is really good for. You can pay 1 to play your Cycler, right? And then you pay 1 to play this card. You attack with, and then you can untap the 2, so you spent no mana to generate a 15k attacker. It's effectively a free attacker. And then now you can use this to put pressure on your opponent, to take a marker off of Unison. Also, it enables the SS3 Son Goku Universe at Stake card really well because it attacks alongside it. I used to play Gamma, Executing Justice, but I think this is just way better now. I play this Son Gohan Master Student Technique. It's a 2-drop. It's a 2/1 16k barrier attacker. I would almost never just leave this to block, because blockers don't matter in this format, right? Like Engine 21 is gonna tap that crap. Gohan's just gonna destroy it, and like any deck that's not doing that, like that deck's probably not a threat. But it's a 60. Being a 16k attacker is actually a really big deal. If your opponent can't just check it for free with their leader, if they do, they have to trade you a 5k, in which you can just trade a 5k in response, right? So that's really good. Being a barrier, it's harder to remove. Boo doesn't just clear it for free. Speaking of barrier attackers, the other new threat I put in is SSB Son Goku Finishing Blow. It's a 2/3 10k. So the 3Z cost is actually pretty heavy and hard to reach, but the rest of it kind of makes up for it. It's got deflect, dual attack, and then if your opponent has 5 or more cards in rest mode, when it comes in, it also gains barrier and critical. So those are 4 insane keyword skills to have for a 2 mana card. And then every time it attacks, it also gains 5k and then KOs one of your opponent's arrest cards. You can't get more value out of a 2-drop, especially coming out of a Z deck. One of my problems playing this deck was just I didn't have enough 2 mana threats in the Z deck. So this was like these 2 cards are great additions to add to that. And before, like if we wanted to remove 1 card, we'd have to pay 3 energy to remove just 1 card from the field in rest mode and gain dual attack crit. Now we can pay 2 energy and remove 2 cards while adding 2 crits as well. So this card came up actually quite a lot this weekend. Still the Vegeta in case you need to remove an active mode barrier threat. It's probably one of the hardest things for this deck to do if your opponent plays something in active mode and they just leave it there and it's super tall. Like you can't get that card down. And then 1 copy of SSB Son Goku Evolved Defender. I probably would play a second copy moving forward from this weekend. Maybe cut the Gohan for the second copy or the Frieza for the second copy. I wouldn't say I necessarily wanted the second copy ever, but like I didn't play the second Frieza as much as I wanted to, and I never cast the Gohan. I just never found a matchup for it. And then I also learned this weekend, and this is going to seem super embarrassing, I learned this weekend that this card can tap the Android 21 SCR because it won't be the master of your auto since it can't actually take the Z card. So that actually cost me my top 8 match at the very end. So that was a big lesson. That might be the reason why I play second copy. But that was the entire list. It was super fun this weekend. Got to see a bunch of friends. Got to eat some awesome food out of Madison. Madison's a super dope city. I hope everybody gets a chance to visit it. Super chill. It's like a college town. But yeah, as usual, shout out to Team Foex PPG and shout out to my boys down in Fort Walton and my family. And I love meeting every single one of you. Every time I get to one of these events and somebody walks up to me and they say, hey, it's really exciting to meet you. I watch your videos and it helps me get better. Like that makes my day at the tournament. So I hope I get to meet more of y'all. Catch you next time.